Thank you, Chair Klobuchar. In my opening statement of our first subcommittee hearing on the subcommittee last year, Senator Klobuchar and I explored the broader contours of competition policy. And it was in that context that I expressed my concern that in many cases, free markets and therefore competition are distorted and undermined whenever you see government putting its thumb on the scale and doing so in a way that ends up picking winners and losers. Today, we're here to discuss an example of exactly that. The ongoing infant formula crisis is a painful reminder of what can happen, a painful reminder of the fact that the most dangerous monopoly creator in any market that it chooses to enter is the government itself. President Reagan had a famous quip that was something that seems appropriate here, where he said that the 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help." Now, when we start looking at this in the context of infant formula, it of course begs the question, who would object to well-intentioned efforts to oversee the production and sale of safe, healthy baby formula? Unfortunately, as we'll hear today, those well-intentioned efforts have ended up taking on other objectives and ended up taking the form of protectionist tariffs that effectively have barred competition from foreign markets. FDA regulations surpassing those of other Western developed nations that created barriers to entry on top of the protectionist trade policies previously mentioned, and also federally mandated sole source contracts under the WIC program that created state-by-state formula monopolies, thus exacerbating even further the current baby formula shortage. Together, these policies formed a perfect storm of sorts to drive market concentration and prevent competition. The very conditions that today mean that the closure of even a single manufacturing plant in Michigan can leave millions of American families scrambling to find ways to feed their newborn children. Recent reporting indicates the severity of this problem, showing that the out-of-stock rate for baby formula rose from just 11% in November of last year to over 73% at the end of last month, May of 2022. In response, several major retailers are now limiting formula purchases. These challenges are on top of the financial pain felt across America in the Biden economy. Gas is over $5 a gallon, and parents are having to drive cities away just to try to find food for their babies in America. Now, keep in mind that there is no natural baby food shortage. There's nothing natural about this. Other peer nations, our neighbors, or our counterparts across oceans aren't suffering this. No, this is created by our government, and it's therefore produced a shortage isolated and limited to our shores. And what's been the Biden administration's response? Well, earlier this week, the president's press secretary helplessly flipped through a binder for a total of 20 agonizing seconds when asked what the White House was going to do to help American families who couldn't find baby formula. Her response? Well, she eventually conceded after that awful 20-second hiatus. Quote, "I don't have anything new," close quote. Yep, that's the end of the quote. That's the whole thing. That was her answer. I guess that means President Biden will keep begging foreign countries for more baby formula, just the same way that he's had to beg foreign dictators for more oil. Now, sadly, because government made this mess, it'll take action by the government to fix these mistakes. And clearly, we can't depend on the Biden administration to lead the charge, given the response that we saw just in the last 48 hours. We can't count on them to do it. And that's why last month I introduced the Fixing Our Regulatory Mayhem Upsetting Little Americans, or Formula Act. One of the better titles I've ever come up with, if I may say so. The Formula Act addresses the infant formula supply chain disruption by temporarily waiving the protectionist trade barriers to importation that reduce the supply and increase the price of already available, safe, foreign-made formula. The bill would also waive some of the regulations that currently prevent the importation of safe baby formula from abroad. This would allow American families to access safe and plentiful formula that's manufactured in Europe and elsewhere during the current shortage. Finally, the bill would allow for WIC program beneficiaries, those receiving WIC vouchers, to use their vouchers to purchase formula from any producer, rather than being limited to the brand or the product listed on their specific voucher, which in many circumstances may be unavailable, thus exacerbating the nature of the shortage for them. Now, the Formula Act won't permanently fix every mistake and every risk that helped get us into this mess, but it can and certainly would provide much needed relief in the near term from the crisis as we now face it. In the meantime, Congress should get to work amending or repealing the anti-competitive trade policies and regulations that are stifling competition in any market, especially those on which we rely heavily in order to have the ability to feed our children. The Formula Act hasn't passed yet, but it's going to. It's going to because it has to. And I have yet to encounter a single substantive objection to it, a single reason not to pass it. This is a crisis, and it is a crisis that could be, and I believe soon will be, fixed by the Formula Act, which we should pass. I'm grateful for our witnesses joining us today to start that process, and I look forward to our discussion. Thank you.